Third down and 20.
The starting quarterback trade of Jared Goff for Matthew Stafford. Obviously, picks were involved, but we got the Lions and Rams switching quarterbacks. What's everyone's take?
It was only unforeseen for half of the podcast.
That's true. I don't know if I personally I didn't see Jared Goff getting traded not straight up, but like.
No, I didn't think it'd be for Stafford.
I didn't think the Rams would be going out and getting Matthew Stafford, but that's what we have. So you're the first to chime in. So I guess we'll turn to you, Lounis. What do you think? What are your thoughts on this trade? How does it affect dynasties?
So my first thought is kind of the obvious one in terms of being Goff's stock does go down, and Stafford's I think like skyrockets a decent amount. This is I think going to be kind of the best surrounding offense he's had in terms of coaching also with McVay's play calling. Like obviously way back in the day when he had Megatron, that's obviously a different level. Best receiver of all time, arguably. Oh, second best. But in terms of just now this offense in comparison to recent years, I think assuming Stafford stays healthy, he's going to have, in my opinion, the best fantasy season he's had in a bit because that offense, well, first off the start, I think all of you agree, Stafford is a significantly more talented quarterback than Goff.
Yes,
I think you guys also say that.
Yeah.
And now putting him in that offense, there were a lot of times where Goff, he was always pretty good, but he was kind of holding back that offense. There were games where they just couldn't get much going, and they had to depend on Cam Akers toward the end of the season a lot. I love this. I think I like it for Robert Woods a little bit more than Cooper Kupp. Because Stafford will let it rip more deep, where I think helps Robert Woods more than like Goff is kind of more of like a check. I wouldn't consider him full check down, but like he'll do a lot more of those short and intermediate passes than Stafford would. So I think Robert Woods receiver wise takes the biggest jump, but I do think it helps Kupp also. But I think we're gonna see Stafford have a QB1 season next year. I don't know where exactly in that top 12 it'll be. I'm trying to think where I would have it ranked. Do you guys agree?
Matt Stafford, I feel like does he gets forgotten about because the past couple of years, one, he was injured, not this most recent season, but 2 seasons ago he was hurt, so he didn't have a high quarterback finish, and then 3 seasons ago he had a subpar season, but he had a stretch from 2011 to 2017 where the worst he finished was quarterback 15. And each of the other years, he finished in the top 12 for quarterbacks, top 10 actually. So, he's had a couple of down years recently, but can you really blame him when one, he got injured for 1 year, and the other is just he's on the Lions. Like it's the Matt Patricia Lions where he had in Matt Patricia's first year. Like you just can't blame the guy. I feel like, so I agree that. Obviously, Stafford's value is going to skyrocket. Goff's, I think, is going to take a little bit of a dip, although I think it was already kind of low from where we were talking. And I don't think this trade's terrible for Goff. I think a lot of people are writing him off. I don't think it's terrible for Goff, to be honest. Frank, what are your thoughts? You're a Cooper Kupp owner in our Dynasty League. You also own
and Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, like what do you think about this?
I think you're right. It definitely boosts Stafford more than it hurts Goff. Initially coming into it, looking at our 3rd and 20 consensus dynasty rankings, we had Baker and Stafford kind of neck and neck for that 12-13 spot. I think now Stafford definitely, at least in my opinion, cleanly jumps Baker, and now is definitely more in that Ryan Tannehill conversation. So I think it's a big boost for Stafford. In terms of Cooper Kupp and the receivers, I actually think that Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods are going to be similar. I think that Robert Woods under Goff always had that consistent floor because he's the kind of receiver that kind of just makes his money after the catch. So they would get the ball in his hands anyway. So I think that it's kind of the opposite what Lounis said for me, in that I think that Cooper Kupp is going to have that floor that we used to see out of him compared to what we saw last year. And Robert Woods will generally do the same thing. Maybe it does increase his ceiling. But someone I am buying, and I liked coming out last year, that I think improves the most is Van Jefferson. I think that Van Jefferson is exactly the type of receiver that Matt Stafford would take advantage of way more than Goff. He's the kind of receiver that the Rams drafted him to be. If we have one-on-one with him, especially in the red zone, he's our guy. We can throw it into him on a fade. We can hit him on a slant. He's got great footwork and is good at those 50-50 balls. I'm really excited to see what he can do. I only have him in one of my 3 leagues. I'm definitely looking to buy him. And in startup drafts, he is a steal and a half. You could probably get him really late in a startup draft, around a bunch of the other receivers that were rookies that didn't really produce a ton, probably like the Gandy Goldens and whatnot. So he's a guy that I think his stock really jumps tremendously and is the receiver that I'm now looking to buy from this offense.
Yeah. So building off that. Oh, sorry. You go ahead, Jake.
I mean, I wanted to touch on a different subject. I wanted to touch on the running backs and how it affected the running backs here. So if you wanted to finish up on wide receivers, go ahead.
I'll jump in real quick on Van Jefferson. I'm almost positive now. There's no certainties, but I just have a feeling that Josh Reynolds is essentially gone in LA. And I wouldn't be surprised if he actually ended up on Detroit back with Jared Goff over there, because we do know that their GM is coming from the Rams. He liked Josh Reynolds. I think Josh Reynolds will move from the Rams to Detroit. And I think that leaves the space wide open for Van Jefferson. I mean, there's no guarantees about what happens with Kupp and Woods and whatnot, and if they stay healthy, if they don't get moved or anything. I just think that Van Jefferson, at the very least, is seeing an increased opportunity because he will be the sure wide receiver 3 on the team. Not that Reynolds was really, I guess he was kind of a threat in that he was always going to take production from Van Jefferson, but now he's almost certainly going to be out of the picture. So you're already just increasing Van Jefferson's opportunities. So yeah, I like the idea of buying Van Jefferson. I don't really know what his price even is at this point. Like he got a lot of hype like near the end of like a couple months after the actual NFL draft, and then once we started getting into camp, he was getting a lot of hype. Like we even saw it with Hard Knocks. And then he didn't really live up to that hype. So I have to imagine his value has dropped from wherever it was before last season. And at whatever price that is, I also, if it's a mid-third, I wouldn't mind tossing mid-third for Van Jefferson. I trust Van Jefferson would probably have better value than whoever I pick in the third. So yeah, Jake, what are your thoughts on the running backs?
So obviously the running backs here both were rookies this past season. DeAndre Swift and Cam Akers, both of which are now, DeAndre Swift consensus top 10 running back. Cam Akers probably right behind him in top 15. I think that's where we all had him in our consensus rankings that we've put together following the season. Frank's making a face at me. What, Frank?
Yeah,
where do you?
I totally had DeAndre Swift in my top 10 running backs.
I said the consensus. I'm with you. I'm a little lower on him as well. I have him more around the 12 range.
I'm dying on that hill, man. I am dying on that hill.
I understand.
I'm
with
you. And
yeah,
Jake,
JT.
I'll be digging your guys' graves.
JT, you will be the one to plant the flag first. You can go ahead and plant the flag on the hill that I die on if DeAndre Swift becomes really good.
Yes, that will be me.
Well, the point is both of these running backs are highly regarded in the Dynasty community, and I've seen a lot going around about how this trade affects them. People are saying this really hurts DeAndre Swift's value and obviously really helps Cam Akers. And what I don't understand is that Cam Akers was already high with Jared Goff as his quarterback. So why would that hurt someone who had a similar kind of season in DeAndre Swift? You got to assume that this Detroit team is going to be losing a lot of games. They don't have a lot of talent going around here, especially with Golladay likely to leave in free agency on the offensive side of the ball. So they're going to be throwing the ball a lot, and I don't think that's necessarily a way for Jared Goff to have success. However, DeAndre Swift is one of the better running back catching the ball out of the backfield. And I do think in a PPR, a half PPR league or a PPR league, whatever you're playing, I think it will increase his receptions moving forward. And on the opposite side, I think it's pretty obvious how this trade benefits Cam Akers. All the teams are going to have to now respect the quarterback play of the Rams, and Goff really, he was nice. He was a good play action quarterback when the running game was strong behind him. But if they really relying on Goff, the running game kind of struggled because no one respected Goff to what they do with Matthew Stafford. And I just think this is going to open up a lot of holes moving forward for Cam Akers. And I wanted to buy him in the season. I wanted to buy him after the season, and I still want to buy him now. If you can get him, please do. Cam Akers is going to have a fantastic season next year.
Yeah, so I like basically everything you were saying there. It is going to be interesting what the Lions end up doing with these draft picks because I think we can all agree the Lions basically need like everything.
What years were the picks again?
I'm trying to find their.
Is 22 and 23.
Is one of them this year?
I believe it's 22.
It wasn't
and
this year. It was not this year.
They got a third.
Oh,
this
so it's
year,
the
I
next 2
believe.
years.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. So basically, what I'm getting at though is they're going to have a lot of picks over these next few years, and it's going to have to, they're going to have to hit on most of these picks. But when you're picking in the first round, I know Frank has some statistics on it about who's likely to be an All-Pro, getting drafted later in the first round, which the Rams draft picks are likely to be. But when you're talking about the Lions team, like anyone could potentially be an improvement. They have some good players. They have some good players, but like the first round, like you're probably improving your team with these picks. And my thing though is, so that's going to help the team in the long run, and that's why I kind of like the players going forward. That will be the focal points, who I think are Hawkinson and Swift. But are we convinced that the Lions aren't going to take a quarterback still? Because I still feel like they're taking a quarterback, and Jared Goff's just going to be like that guy who will, maybe he'll play the whole season, maybe he'll get replaced, but he's just going to be that veteran presence for a little while until you could get the rookie up to speed. And then I think really they're just going to, wait out his contract and then dump him and make some splashes at that point. Or they'll probably then have the money to then sign their actual quarterback to a long-term deal, which is what I think the Lions are really going for. What do you guys think?
I was about to bring that question up before you asked. I was going to say, do you guys see the Lions taking with Goff? So my prediction is actually this now. Originally, I was completely on your side, JT, where I thought they were for sure going to draft someone this year. But then I was thinking about it more. You know how like they have a really bad roster right now, obviously, and they're losing some guys like Galladay. They lost Darius Slay last year. I think they're going to give Goff this season because if they don't have a top 10 pick, it means Goff played amazing with how rough that roster is. So assuming he plays like kind of how he was at the end of last season where it's not great, or if he does play bad, they'll be in position to get a quarterback again next year somewhere in the top 10, and they'll have another first if they need to move up at all. So I'm thinking they're going to give Goff this season, and unless he like kind of just surprises them or impresses them a ton, then they're going to draft one next year and they can move up with the other first round pick they have.
Yeah,
So then, go ahead, Jake.
I tend to agree with Lounis here. The thing with Jared Goff is his contract hasn't even kicked in yet. This upcoming season is the first year that this contract kicks in. They have this year coming up and the 2022 season before they can even get out of that contract with like minimal dead cap. So I just don't see the point to them drafting a quarterback, because if you think about it, you're just going to be wasting all of that cap space on your roster just for a backup. Like we've seen Jared Goff, obviously he has his flaws and he has his, good games and his bad games. But in the end of the day, he has led a team to the Super Bowl. Obviously, he didn't win, and obviously he had some help. He had Todd Gurley behind him. He had that Rams defense on the other side of the ball, and that's what really led that Rams team to success. But it is proven that he's not a horrible quarterback. He is a guy that is a proven NFL quarterback, an NFL starting quarterback, and you have so many holes on this team. You can pick, an offensive lineman. You can pick pretty much anybody on the defensive side of the ball. A wide receiver, they're gonna have none with Marvin Jones and Galladay looking like they're leaving. Really, the only thing you have on the offensive side of the ball is Hawkinson and Swift. So I just think there's so many holes around him that you want to wait until you can get out of that that Jared Goff contract, and then you can take a quarterback, or even take a quarterback next year where he sits behind Goff for a year and then Goff's gone. I just think the 2 years before you can get out of that contract is a big deal.
So you did touch on. Yeah, sorry, Frank. Go ahead.
Let me just jump in here real quick, JT. So for me, I think the Lions want Goff. GM from the Rams, who drafted Goff #1 overall pick, who gave him that extension, is now the GM of the Lions. I think that he thought he was getting deal of the century. He gets his quarterback for a guy that you mutually agreed to trade, so he was already gone before he could play. You had no choice. And you get your quarterback in a couple first-round picks. So I think that Goff is here to stay for the short-term foreseeable future. Now, in terms of the draft, if I'm the Lions, I think, they're a prime trade-down candidate. If a guy like Trey Lance or Justin Fields or any one of those quarterbacks is on the board, you can get a nice price. We did a mock draft. We're going to do a mock draft, release it after the Super Bowl, where the Lions trade down and acquire another first-round pick in 2022 while one of these quarterbacks is on the board. Now, if they don't trade down, I'm picking up a tackle. You could probably get one of Penei Sewell, Slater, or Darisaw is going to be on the board. Fantastic tackle, franchise caliber tackle, and then you have other picks next year to reload on talent. And then lastly, this is kind of touching on something we touched on before, but I want to talk about it, is that I am not convinced that this is going to be a Lions football team that is going to be passing the ball left, right, and center. I understand they may be down and lose games, but this is an organization that has been trying and trying and trying to find management and a staff that can establish a running football culture. That's why they hired Darrell Bevell last year. He's a guy that was good with running backs, developing them. I think that's why they drafted DeAndre Swift so as high as they did. They wanted to get that elite level running back. It's why they drafted Frank Ragnow in the first, run blocking center. Even if they're down, I think this is going to be a team that wants to establish good defense running the football. You brought in 2 coaches from the Saints, probably one of the most creative run-schemed offenses in the NFL. So I just want to throw that out there and why I think this really does help DeAndre Swift, all the changes that have been happening.
I don't disagree with you. I just think that they're not a talented football team right now, and they're going to be forced to throw the ball because they're down in games. I agree. Their first goal will be to establish the run and try to be effective doing that. I just don't know if they have the talent to do so.
Both.
This is a quick, interesting stat I saw with their cap charges. So in 2021, these are who the Lions and the Rams will be paying each quarterback. Because you got to know the Rams are eating dead cap, so the contract isn't as bad for the Lions. As you mentioned, it was similar with Wentz before when we were talking about hypothetical trades. The Eagles are going to have to eat some of that dead cap. The Rams are going to be eating dead cap also. So the Lions in 2021 will be paying Jared Goff $28 million and Matthew Stafford $19 million in dead cap. The Rams will be paying Jared Goff $22 million and Stafford $20 million. So they're still paying Goff more than Stafford, just off the dead cap this season.
Yeah,
Stonks.
So it's agreed that both their contracts are pricey. I think Jake was the one who mentioned that after 2022 the Lions can kind of get out of Goff's contract for pretty cheap. I think he's only got like an $8 million hit in dead cap. So 2022 is probably the 2022 into 2023 season is probably when the Lions will be looking to make, some big moves there. But where I was going, and I'm glad Frank answered this, is like, what are they going to do at pick 7 if they're not taking a quarterback? I get taking a tackle is probably a smart idea then, or trading down. But personally, I just think like they're going to see Trey Lance, they're going to see Zach Wilson or Justin Fields. One of them's going to be up there, and they're going to be like, that's our guy. And you know what? They probably still are going to be in the top 10 because the roster is just not great. Like, I'm sorry, Lions fans, if any Lions fans are listening, your roster just isn't that great. So it's going to be tough for you to compete and have a higher pick. So they're going to be in that spot again next year, and then I think is when they might trade down and get some more picks and just build the depth around the quarterback that they like. Kind of akin to what I think the Chargers might do this year. But I guess we'll see going forward. I'm pretty sure it's time to move on. We spent a lot of time on this. It is the big,
Real
though.
quick.
Yes, Frank? Yep.
We will finally figure out if the reason the Lions couldn't run the ball was because it's a Stafford curse or it's because it's a Lions curse.
That's true.
I think it's a Lions curse. Well, last quick comment. I can appreciate how hated Matt Patricia was in Stafford. Like, it is hard to be this unanimously hated by all your players. Like Kenny Galladay liking the post about him getting fired, Darius Slay airing him out on First Take. Then Patricia's back with the Pats, and Stafford goes, "Literally send me anywhere but the Patriots with Patricia."
Yeah,
That's
I
hard.
mean, he just tried too hard. I mean, everyone says it. All the talking heads say it. Like, you're not Bill Belichick, and you can't just come in there and try and be Bill Belichick. Even like, I don't know if you guys have ever listened to interviews with Matt Patricia. First, his voice does not sound like you'd expect his voice to sound. Like, that's not important in Dynasty whatsoever, or how he can coach. But
And
I
no
don't
one
expect him to
expected
sound.
Patrick Mahomes to sound like Kermit the Frog, but yes, here we are.
Second, it's like, you're not that person. Like I've listened to him in interviews. Like, he's just like a very smart kind of guy. Like, he's even tempered. Like, you can't
I'm
then
pretty
go
sure
out
he
and
has.
pretend.
Sorry, completely off topic, but I'm pretty sure Patricia's like actually like a rocket scientist. I think
Yeah.
he has like a degree in like aerospace engineering or something. He's like a really smart guy.
And you
He's
can't
so
pretend
smart, but he can't get 10 guys in the freaking field.
like.
I'm sorry. I had
Strategy.
to.
All right,
The future of the NFL.
my last point. We'll move on. Is like, Matt Patricia just couldn't pretend like he is who he isn't. Like, he can't go out there and pretend he's a hard nose, because he's not. And people are going to snuff it out, and your team's not going to respect you if they think you're just acting in front of them. So that was the issue. It's fine to move on. Hopefully he'll have a resurgence on the Patriots, because God knows the Patriots are going to need a resurgence.
Wait, hold on. Pencils out, everyone. Pencils out for Matt Patricia.
I
This
got
one
pen.
last time.
Oh shit! I don't have a.
See, Lunas, this
R.I.P.
kind
to
of
a legend.
this lack of preparedness is why you're not an NFL coach, Lunas. All right, pens away.
Probably give a better press conference than the Eagles.